Demand at food banks has soared to record levels all over the United States, Michael Snyder reports. Why is demand at food banks all over the country higher than it has ever been before? The media keeps insisting that economic conditions are just fine, but it's become quite obvious that to everyone that this is not true. In particular, the rising cost of living has been absolutely crushing households from coast to coast. In the old days, most of the people that would show up at food banks were unemployed, but now food banks are serving large numbers of people that actually do have jobs, but that don't make enough to pay for all of the basics. The ranks of the working poor are growing very rapidly, and this is creating an unprecedented crisis all over America. Perhaps you think that I'm exaggerating. Let me share some specific examples that will prove that I'm not. In Pennsylvania, the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank saw the highest need on record this past year. A new report shows Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank saw its highest need on record this past year. It comes as we mark Hunger Action Month across the country. Toy Payne of Pittsburgh's Allentown neighborhood gets emotional thinking about how the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank in DeKesk and other local pantries have been lifesavers for her for the past 30 years. Payne said, "We need these places. Without the food banks, I think a lot of people would be struggling even more. You know that it helps the elderly and people like me that's on disability," she said. And we're also seeing record demand in Montana. North Valley Food Bank in Whitefish served 613 families a Thanksgiving meal, a record high. They anticipate more than 1,000 food bank customers for their Christmas holiday distribution on December 18 to 19. Year-round here, we're feeding over 1,000 of our neighbors every week, and the need goes up during the holiday season, said North Valley Food Bank Director of Development Mandy Girth. And in the San Francisco area, this holiday season, food banks say they're facing greater need than ever before. In Silicon Valley, they say 1 in 6 people are coming in for food assistance. In San Francisco, that number is 1 in 5, but the organizations say donations are not keeping up with demand. For all the food banks, December is a big month, but in terms of need and in terms of fundraising, and they say what happens now will impact the entire year ahead. In some parts of the nation, food banks are absolutely shattering all of the old records. At one location in New Jersey, demand has actually quadrupled since the peak of the pandemic. Food banks across the Garden State are struggling to keep up with rising demand that may soon outpace donations. At the Salvation Army's Kroc Community Center in Camden, requests for services have quadrupled since the height of the pandemic, according to a spokesperson. They keep telling us that everything is fine. They keep telling us that there is no reason to be concerned. But in some areas of the country, demand at food banks is now 4 times higher than it was during the worst moments of the pandemic. Wake up. They are not telling you the truth. In St. Louis, some people actually had to wait in the line for 8 hours just to receive a free Thanksgiving meal. That high demand is felt all over the state. In St. Louis, people are waiting 8 hours to get a free Thanksgiving meal from the Urban League. This is not normal. Poverty is rapidly growing all around us. When will our leaders finally admit the truth? In the state of Washington, approximately 1/4 of the entire population is now experiencing food insecurity. The rising cost of living, particularly in housing and groceries, is pushing more families in Washington state to seek assistance from food banks. According to Robert Odeja of Food Life, the largest hunger relief organization in the state, food insecurity affects about 25% of Washingtonians, meaning that 1 in 4 residents is struggling to access enough food. Ojeda said the percentage of food insecurity in Washington state is about 25%, so 1 in 4 Washingtonians are experiencing food insecurity. And the largest network of food banks in the state of Washington is reporting that overall demand has nearly doubled since the pandemic began. Before the pandemic, Food Lifeline served about 800,000 people annually. During the pandemic, that number rose to 1.1 million and has continued increasing, reaching 1.5 million in 2023, and 1.7 million in 2024, Coleman said. Hunger in America is getting progressively worse. Poverty in America is getting progressively worse. Economic pain in America is getting progressively worse. Meanwhile, the party on Wall Street never seems to end, and young bankers are snorting lines of Adderall at their desks. Young Wall Street bankers working 90 hours a week are taking Adderall at their desk in a new office drug culture. While cocaine was once the drug of choice, bankers are now reporting turning to the ADHD medication for workdays that can last as long as 22 hours, along with nicotine patches and energy drinks. One young banker that was interviewed openly admits that he uses Adderall to help him cope with 22-hour days. Can you imagine? Jonah Frey, former investment banker for Wells Fargo in San Francisco, said one colleague would snort lines of crushed Adderall pills at his desk and that nobody blinked an eye. Mr. Frey told Wall Street Journal he began taking this in 2020 because his colleagues told him it would help with the long hours, frequently pushing through from 4 a.m. until calls with the East Coast office at 2 a.m. the next day. They are so busy making money on Wall Street that some workers hardly get any sleep at all. But at the same time, economic suffering is spreading like wildfire in communities all over the nation. If our economic pain is this bad while the party on Wall Street is still raging, what is our country going to look like once the party on Wall Street finally ends? This is from Michael Snyder on the Economic Collapse blog. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. About the author, Michael Snyder's new book, Why, is available on paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 8 other books available on Amazon, including Chaos, End Times, 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophets in the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work that he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and the most important news, and he always freely, happily allows others to republish those articles on their own websites. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.